Hi, this is your host. Today we're going to talk about the benefits of pet ownership for seniors. And this is really timely, because here in the United States, we just celebrated National Pet Day. So happy belated National Pet Day. And this is something that is very near and dear to my heart. As many of you know, I have 2 dogs myself. And so I am always thinking about how can we keep our pets healthy? How can we get them to live their best life? But also it's made me think, how can having a pet or not having a pet affect the quality of life for older adults? And there's actually been a lot of research on this topic. So I'm going to share some of the highlights with you today. The first benefit I want to mention is that owning a pet can increase physical activity. This makes sense, right? You need to go outside to walk your dog. There was one study published in the Journal of the American Heart Association that actually compared people who had dogs to people who did not have dogs. And they found that people who owned dogs were more likely to meet the recommended amount of physical activity per week. The researchers in this study actually went out and observed the people when they were walking their dogs. They recorded the duration of the walk, the speed of the walk. And what they found was that, on average, people walked their dogs for about 20 minutes at a good pace. Now, if you do the math, that's about 140 minutes per week, which meets the recommended amount of moderate intensity exercise. For people who did not own a dog, they were less likely to engage in this amount of exercise. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, why don't they just get a cat? Cats can be pretty active. And while cats are active, the type of activity that they engage in is usually not as beneficial for humans as the activity that we get from dogs. Some of the activity that cats do is sprinting short distances, jumping up and down, climbing. And while these are great activities for cats, these are not activities that humans can necessarily mimic. And so, a lot of times the motivation for exercising comes from the pet rather than from ourselves. Another benefit of pet ownership for seniors is decreased cardiovascular risk. So in addition to increasing physical activity, pet ownership is associated with lower blood pressure and lower cholesterol. A study was done by the University of Missouri, and they followed almost 7,000 people over the course of 6 years. And what they found was that people who own dogs were less likely to die of a heart attack or a stroke. Now, I know what you're thinking. Maybe it's the dog hair that's giving people who do own pets an allergy, and that's causing problems. Well, actually, this study took that into account. It looked at people who had allergies, and they also looked at people who didn't have allergies, and they still found that benefit. Other studies have backed this up. People who have dogs tend to have lower levels of triglycerides, lower levels of LDL, or bad cholesterol, and higher levels of HDL, or good cholesterol. Another benefit of pet ownership is decreased stress and increased social support. We know that owning a pet can be really therapeutic. Pets can provide us with unconditional love and companionship, but it doesn't stop there. Pets can also help decrease loneliness. Pets can motivate us to get outside and socialize. And in fact, in one study, researchers found that people who own dogs were more likely to meet their neighbors and socialize with them than people who did not own dogs. So while it may seem like owning a pet would increase the risk for social isolation because you spending all your time at home with your pet, it actually has the opposite effect. People who own pets tend to be more social. And then finally, owning a pet can increase happiness. I mean, think about it. When you come home after a long day, what's the first thing you want to do? You want to decompress? You want to relax? It's the first thing your pet does. They wag their tail. They're happy to see you. They make you feel good about yourself. And this is a huge benefit. Happiness is something that we all want. Happiness is something that we all strive for. Pets can really be a key component of that. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the downsides of pet ownership, because not everyone is able to handle the responsibility of taking care of a pet, and that's okay. It's important to recognize that before you take on the responsibility of pet ownership, you need to ask yourself, can I physically handle it? Can I emotionally handle it? And financially handle it? Because pets can be expensive. In addition, pets can be a source of stress. You might be wondering, how can that be? I thought you said that they reduce stress. Well, yes, they do reduce stress. But sometimes, depending on the pet that you have, they can be a source of stress as well. For example, you might be worried about your pet's health, or you might be worried about what will happen to your pet when you're no longer here. So it's important to think about those things ahead of time. Make sure you have a plan in place so that you can care for your pet as you age. And also think about what will happen to your pet if something happens to you. Do you have a family member or a friend who could take your pet in? Or do you have the financial resources to leave money aside to care for your pet? And also, do you have the physical and emotional ability to handle the pet? For example, are you able to take the pet for walks? Are you able to play with the pet? If you can't do those things, then maybe you shouldn't have a pet. It's important to be honest with yourself. It's also important to reach out for help if you need it. So now let's talk about alternatives to pet ownership. Maybe you can't have a pet for whatever reason, but you still want the benefits that come along with it. Well, there are some alternatives. One alternative is volunteering at an animal shelter or volunteering at a nursing home where they have animals. Another alternative is pet sitting. Maybe you can pet sit for your friends or your neighbors. A fourth alternative is becoming a foster parent. So you can foster a pet, and that way you can give a pet a temporary home while they wait for their forever home. I want to end by saying there is no right answer. When it comes to pet ownership, everyone's situation is different. Everyone has different needs, different wants. And it's important to take all of that into consideration when making a decision about pet ownership. But I hope this video was helpful. I hope it gave you some things to think about.
You're good.
And I hope it helped you decide whether or not pet ownership is right for you. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button below and subscribe to our channel to stay updated on all our latest videos. And as always, remember to take care of yourself because you're worth it.